The Dr. Fazil Show is brought to you by Health Tips Media. The Dr. Fazil Show is intended for health education purposes only and complies with all HIPAA regulations. All of the CDC guidelines for COVID-19 safety were followed while filming this episode of the Dr. Fazil Show.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the Dr. Fazil Show. This is the June 2021 episode. We have Dr. Fazil here with us. Thank you for being here with us, Dr. Fazil. And we'll continue discussing the coronavirus epidemic.
Thank you, audience, for having me in this show today. And as Jose said, today the topic of discussion is the latest chapter in the COVID global epidemic. As we all know that we are winning this war in USA as a nation. We are very innovative, and that innovation once more, in many fights we have won in the past, we have won this war again, and we are proud of doing that. And now lies the responsibility on our shoulders to not only that we have won the war here, but this is a global pandemic. It is everywhere. All lives have been affected, and we need to spread the same level of humanity to the countries around us, so this pandemic can be gone for good.
Dr. Fazil, in the previous episodes, you discussed or you mentioned the Indian COVID pandemic. How would that affect us today?
Well, that's a very good question. We are not living in a glass bubble anymore. We are in 21st century. Even though we can close the borders and do a lot of restrictions, but this is such a contagious virus that one way or the other it will spread worldwide, and we are no exception. So unfortunately, India does not have that infrastructure where they can control pandemic. They don't have even the basic necessity like oxygen in certain cases because of the demand, and the shortage because of pandemic is so worse there. As I did mention last time, that the more this virus replicates, the more mutation it's going to get, and they already have a mutation, we call it double mutation. Now please do understand that this double mutation is not the same double mutation as we have in UK. It is actually a different double mutation at a different level. So this have make this virus more pandemic, more contagious, and more deadly. Because of that, it is spreading like a wildfire, and so it has already spread to countries like Vietnam. They have seen this pandemic in that country, and they have another lockdown there. So my concern is that if this mutation, which is different, more contagious at a different level of mutation than other viruses we have seen, what is coming next? If it mutates more, as I said in the previous episode, our current arsenal might not work. We have vaccination. So far, so good. We have also kind of like CDC have taken away the guidelines for use of masks, especially outdoor, or people who have been vaccinated, they don't have to use masks. The social distancing guidelines have changed. Instead of 6 feet, it's gone to 3 feet. So we are lowering our guard, So my concern is, as we're lowering our guard, this pandemic, which is still smoldering in different part of the world, it might come back in a different flavor. It might be more nasty, more deadly, more contagious. And we already think that's happening in different countries like Vietnam, as I just mentioned. So we shouldn't be lowering our guard at this moment. I know it is a time of celebration in some fashion as the businesses are opening up. It is time of being cherished, time of being joyful, but also being careful at the same time. And that's my message to the audience today.
Now you can catch up with all of our previous shows on all Roku devices. Simply search for the Dr. Fazil Show channel and add it to your home screen. View our videos online by visiting our website at www.drfazilshow.com. Our videos are available on YouTube by searching for The Dr. Fazil Show. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The Dr. Fazil Show is available in multiple provider office waiting rooms across Yuma, Arizona. Don't forget to get your copy of Health Tips magazine and read about this interview, currently distributed across Yuma, Arizona.
And Dr. Fazil, how is the Indian double mutation different from the UK double mutation?
Well, the Indian double mutation is not at the same genomic level. It's at a different genomic level. So sometimes people get carried away. Well, we already have, this vaccine, Moderna, Pfizer is working for, the UK double mutation, so we should be fine. And that's actually where we are a little, there's a little misunderstanding, I would say that. And I want to clarify this misunderstanding today. So the UK, the Indian double mutation is more contagious, more deadly, not at the same level. So it is another mutation than the UK mutation. And it also have a reverse pattern. That means it's affecting mostly the children than the adults. And we have not seen that yet. I mean, we have seen that, as we started doing inoculation in the United States, that people who are more high risk, like healthcare workers, people in the forefronts, which are more exposed to this virus, were inoculated first, or people which have comorbid conditions like diabetes, hypertension, or advanced age. People in nursing homes, because they were more vulnerable. Then we went to the phase 2 where we started to younger population, and then we kind of stopped, where we didn't inoculate children at that point, because they are very rare to have this infection, or if they do have infection, they don't become symptomatic. Unlike this situation which we have seen so far, Indian COVID wave is have a reverse pattern. It is affecting children. They get at least sick enough to be hospitalized, and then they have a different kind of model. Most like as in India, that they have a bigger family system, and they live in a kind of combined houses, and it gives them a chance to spread virus from children to their parents, to their relatives in that house, and that causes spread to those personnel, and that's why it is spreading so fast. And then they end up having complications, and the whole families are being wiped off with this virus. And if they're not sick because of virus, they're sick enough to go to the hospital, and it's breaking down the hospital system there. So the hospitals are saturated, and that's have caused indirect complications. They might have been saved if they have enough basic medical care, like oxygen. So they are dying not just because of the COVID, but also not having enough medical infrastructure there, being there as we have a strong infrastructure here. So I feel very fortunate, and I think we are very lucky being American, and America is a great country, is the best country to be in, land of freedom, land of innovation, I would say that also in addition. And we have innovated those vaccines. As we said, the RNA vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer. So it's time to help other countries out as well. I think this is also in our best interest because, as I said, this virus can come back to us again, and it not to us, to any other country for that matter. It can go to Canada, Australia, or any other country it might be. It is not the war can be won at one front. It has to be won by all humanity at all the fronts, and no man should be left behind. No human being should be left behind. So I think that's the reason we see a different guidelines coming up now. That even in USA we are inoculating children now, and most people do ask questions. If they don't get sick with current virus, which is in the in the air, why we are so much concerned about children? Well, the reason in my mind is that we in somewhere in our background we know that this Indian mutation virus might come to USA, and that might affect the children as it did in that country, and we might want to be ready for that. So that's the reason we have lowered the guidelines to also inoculate. Now we're doing from 16 to 12 years old children, and now there's a push to even lower the age limit, so we can even inoculate the children which are a lot more younger. And I think, although it has not been announced yet, but I think the scientists are worried that mutation, if it does come here, what are our options? And that's why they're inoculating children now.
Now you can catch up with all of our previous shows on all Roku devices. Simply search for the Dr. Fazil Show channel and add it to your home screen. View our videos online by visiting our website at www.drfazilshow.com. Our videos are available on YouTube by searching for The Dr. Fazil Show. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The Dr. Fazil Show is available in multiple provider office waiting rooms across Yuma, Arizona. Don't forget to get your copy of Health Tips magazine and read about this interview, currently distributed across Yuma, Arizona.
And Dr. Fazo, in your opinion, is this the biggest epidemic that we've seen in mankind history?
In one way, in the modern history, you can say yes, but the history is full of those events in the past. If you look at the history books, starting from medieval time, when they had plague, and back then they have lockdowns too, by the way. It is not the first time we had lockdowns. Like in 16th century, they had the big plague, we call it, and a lot of casualties back then. We had, Spanish flu, we had malaria, They are all are pandemic of different kinds, like Spanish flu. And before we go further, I want to let the audience know Spanish flu did not originate from Spain. The Spain were the like whistleblowers. They said, hey, there's something going on. There's a pandemic, and they were the only one who were not involved in First World War. And the countries who were fighting in the First World War, they were suffering from this flu, which is a viral infection, but they didn't want to admit that because it was their strategy of war, that if they tell the enemy that they got this another deep problem, they might take advantage of it. But it was everywhere except Spain. So then they start to talk about it and start writing about it, and the world got aware of this thing, and they say, well, why not we call it Spanish flu? And now we look backwards, and a lot of people have this misnomer that it did come from Spain, and Spain caused it, and actually it was the opposite. So again, I think we have a point to make here is sometime we got to dig deeper to find the truth, and you will find the truth. And in this case, again, Spanish flu, we did mention about that. Now, malaria is more of a parasite, the mosquito-bitten infection. So malaria means bad air, malaria. So that's how the name was named, malaria, and it has been used. It also became an issue in First World War when there was a lot of swamps, and the mosquito grows in swamps, and they didn't know about that, and the treatment came out accidentally. They were using a bark for that, which actually looked like cinchona bark. It's a tree known as cinchona, and they was using something which was similar to that, but not cinchona. And somewhere they start to, the merchants start to mix that with the cinchona bark tree with the one they were selling back then to make more profit. And suddenly, the doctors start to see that people who are being treated with a certain batch of those barks, that they're getting better, and the certain people are being treated with another kind of bark are not getting better. And then when they did the trace back, it was an accidental discovery. Actually, the real treatment was cinchona bark, and not the one which looked like that. And the merchants did it out of pure greed, not for scientific discovery, but it led to the scientific discovery. And then we have if you don't have treatment available, malaria could be fatal, as a matter of fact, even now. So that's how they found the treatment. So yes, there has been great pandemics in the past. They have been treated differently in the past. And for this one, we treated obviously differently with the messenger RNA vaccine. And also this, in one way, this biological weapon, I will call it, has been used in the history 100 of years ago. Genghis Khan, when he was fighting, one of the biggest warrior in history books, although he was a cruel warrior. What he was doing, when they were fighting, at a certain point he got stuck. He was trying to take over a castle, and he couldn't get inside. So what he started doing, that his own soldiers, which had the plague, he will start throwing their dead bodies inside that castle over the wall to catapult, like a slingshot. And soon enough, people inside the castle, they start to get infection, and they have to come, and they start to die. At that point, they have no other choice but to come out, and that's how he won the war. So in one fashion, if we look at the biological warfare, the concept is not new. It goes back in in the history 100 and 1,000 of years ago. Same thing has been utilized in First World War. Like military personnel like Hitler. And I don't know if the audience know much about the rail gun. The rail gun is one which is actually have a pretty long range, and it was being utilized where it was throwing the shells filled with mosquitoes, infected with malaria, from Germany on England, in the hope that it will spread those infected mosquitoes there, and they will have malaria. I don't know if it worked or not worked, but I think it was toward the end of the war, and it was this last straw. But he did try that, So we have to be mindful of that. Although this we got under control. My point here is that we have to be careful about things happening in the new century now. We are more vulnerable to the pandemic than ever before in the history of mankind. And the reason is that we travel more, we socialize more, and we have new mode of transportations. So things which used to spread slowly in the past can spread pretty fast nowadays. And so those are the open loopholes we need to plug. And recently we have seen attacks like ransomwares and our infrastructure, in the meat industry, on electrical grids, on the healthcare. So we have to be careful and watch out for those new technologies which are out there now. So the landscape have changed. Keep your guards up. I know this is over for now. Hopefully it will be over for a long time. It's not over in a lot of other countries yet. They're still fighting their own fight. We have to help them out because it is not just the American fight, it is the global fight for the rest of the humanity. And we are helping them out. I mean, it is not that we're not. We are already doing it. But we also have to be vigilant for any future epidemics because now we have SARS-1 in the past, SARS-2 and COVID, and I talked about Black Plague and malaria and Spanish flu, but now we have a bird flu. Got to watch out for that now, see where it flies. Keep your guards up, audience. But so far so good. We won this war. And God bless you guys all, and stay safe, and we'll be back next month with more updated information on this epidemic or maybe another epidemic. Have a nice day.
And thank you for joining us for June 2021 episode of the Dr. Fazil Show. We look forward to seeing you next month for the next episode of the Dr. Fazil Show.
Thank you.
Thank you.